You know that feeling, right? That jolt of panic, the cold sweat, the racing heart. We've all been there. But have you ever really stopped to think about what's actually happening inside your body and mind at that moment? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the science of fear and stress.
So let's paint a picture. You're staring down a huge deadline. Your heart is just pounding, your palms are getting sweaty. But you look over at your colleague, and they seem totally fine, completely calm. It's the same stressor, but you're having completely different reactions. Why is that? That's the exact puzzle we are going to piece together today.
To get to the bottom of this, we first need to look under the hood. We're talking about the deep, ancient wiring inside your brain and body that has been fine-tuned over millennia for one thing and one thing only: survival. Let's call it your body's primal alarm.
Now, you've probably heard of this alarm system. It's famously called the fight or flight response. The most important thing to get here is that this is an automatic reaction. This isn't something you think about or choose to do. It's a switch that gets flipped the second your brain even thinks there might be a threat. It's all about getting your body ready to either square up to the danger or get out of there fast.
So how does this alarm actually get triggered? Well, it's this incredibly fast biological chain reaction, a cascade. It all starts with what your brain perceives as a threat, and that could be anything from a real physical danger to, a scary-sounding email. Your hypothalamus, this tiny little command center at the base of your brain, hits the big red button. That signal tells your adrenal glands to unleash a flood of powerful hormones, and just like that, your entire body is on high alert.
Let's meet the two main players in this hormonal surge: adrenaline and cortisol. Think of adrenaline as the first responder on the scene. It gives you that immediate jolt of energy, jacking up your heart rate, pumping up your blood pressure. Cortisol is more like the crisis manager. It floods your bloodstream with sugar for quick fuel, sharpens your brain's focus, and, super importantly, it shuts down anything that's not essential for survival right now, like your digestive system. No time for that when you're running for your life.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly powerful automatic physical response. But that still doesn't explain what we're actually afraid of. Are we born with our fears, or do we learn them along the way? This brings us to a really fundamental question. Is fear something we're born with, or is it made?
And the answer, it turns out, is both. We basically have two main types of fear. First up is innate fear. You can think of this as the factory-installed software you get at birth, a little gift from millions of years of evolution. Think about how babies are naturally afraid of falling or sudden loud noises. Then you've got conditioned fear. This is the stuff we learn from experience, when something that was totally neutral, like a specific sound or a place, gets linked with something dangerous.
And that innate, hardwired fear, it has some seriously deep roots in our DNA. What you're looking at here are fMRI scans from a totally fascinating study on twins. By comparing how the brains of identical and fraternal twins responded to threats, scientists discovered that our gut reactions to danger are actually highly heritable.
So, just how strong is that genetic link? Well, the numbers are kind of mind-blowing. This study found that in the parts of our brain that process visual threats, the heritability of that fear response can be as high as 63%. That means a huge chunk of why you might jump out of your skin at a shadow while your friend doesn't even flinch could literally be written in your genetic code.
But here's where it gets really, really interesting. Because while our genes might load the gun, they don't actually pull the trigger. And that brings us to the most powerful piece of this whole puzzle, the part that actually gives us the most control: our own mind.
This leads us to a really game-changing idea called cognitive appraisal theory. The theory basically argues that it's not the stressful event itself that's causing our emotions. It's our personal interpretation of that event. The situation itself is neutral. It's our thoughts about it that create the feeling of fear or stress.
So how does this whole appraisal thing work? Well, according to the theory, it happens in two lightning-fast steps. First comes the primary appraisal, where your brain asks, okay, is this a threat to me? If the answer is yes, you immediately move to the secondary appraisal. All right, what can I do about this? Can I handle it? And how you answer those two questions is what determines the emotion you ultimately feel.
And this quote just nails it. Feeling an emotion isn't something that just happens to you. It's not passive, it's an active process. Your past experiences, your beliefs about the world, what you're trying to achieve, all of that stuff gets fed into that split-second appraisal that creates your emotional reality.
So if you take away just one thing about this theory, let it be this. The stressful event, that's just the kindling. Your personal interpretation, your appraisal, that is the spark that actually ignites the emotional fire.
Now, this whole alarm system is a masterpiece, right? It's designed perfectly for short-term survival. But in our modern world, with its constant deadlines, notifications, and pressures, we face a totally new kind of problem. What happens when that alarm gets stuck in the on position?
See, normally, once a threat passes, your body's systems are supposed to go back to normal. Everything calms down. But with modern stressors, like constant work pressure or financial worries, the threat never really goes away. So what happens when that fight or flight system never gets the all-clear signal to stand down?
Well, the consequences are pretty serious. This long-term activation of the stress response system just wears your body down. It disrupts almost all of its processes. The health risks are huge, ranging from things like anxiety and depression to heart disease, digestive issues, and even problems with your memory and concentration.
In some extreme cases, this whole fear system can kind of go haywire and focus with incredible intensity on one specific thing, which can lead to a phobia. And the key phrase here is life-limiting. This isn't just being a little scared of spiders, it's a fear so intense that it actually stops you from living your life in a normal way.
Okay, I know this all might sound a little daunting. We've got primal alarms, genetic predispositions, the dangers of chronic stress. But here's the really good news. Just understanding how this system works is the absolute first step to taking back the controls.
Let's go back to that fire metaphor we were talking about. If your appraisal of a situation is the spark, then that is exactly where your power is. You might not always be able to get rid of the kindling, the stressful event itself, but you absolutely have the power to manage the flame.
So how do we actually do that? Well, these are real evidence-backed strategies for managing your body's stress response. And they're not just feel-good activities, they are actively working to reverse the physical effects of stress. Things like getting regular exercise, meditation, and eating well directly counteract those stress hormones. Building strong friendships and even just making time for a good laugh are also incredibly powerful tools. And of course, remember that seeking professional help is always a sign of strength, not weakness.
Let's end with this, because it's a fundamental shift in perspective. You are not some simple machine that just reacts automatically. You are a complex, amazing being that actively gives meaning to the world around you. And in that process of creating meaning, you have real power.
Ultimately, your reaction to stress isn't just a reflex. It's a story that you tell yourself about what's happening. So the final question I want to leave you with is this. Knowing that you have the power to shape that story, what story will you choose to tell next?